Algebra 1, we have all of these problems today are going to be a two-step plan. I'm going to get them all set up with step 1 of the plan, and then step 2 is going to vary from problem to problem. So once we get the board seemingly filled out, turn the video off because we'll only be halfway done. Step 1 of this plan is to use a new thing called point-slope form to write equations. It's a little bit similar to slope-intercept form, and these things weren't named very creatively. Yesterday we did slope-intercept form, which is nice if they tell you a slope and they tell you a y-intercept, hence the name slope-intercept. Today they're going to tell you a point and they're going to tell you a slope, and you're going to use a thing called point-slope form. So here's a point, an ordered pair, x-coordinate and y-coordinate. Here's a slope. We're going to use that information to write ourselves an equation. This is the equation that you're going to want to memorize to do this and keep it in your brain forever, because you will use this in Algebra 1, you'll use it in Algebra 2, you'll use it in geometry, you'll use it in trig, you'll use it in calculus. This will be a part of your yearly life of every math class you'll do from now till the time you stop taking math. So this is always going to just be the letter y. This, you're basically going to play fill in the blank with a y-coordinate that you're given. This formula is set up to subtract. So if they give you a positive number, subtract that positive number. If you get a negative number, subtracting a negative number is the old minus minus, going to make a plus. But this is going to be a fill in the blank. This is going to be the variable, always y. M, as yesterday, stands for slope. I don't know why M stands for slope, it just does. So we're going to fill in the blank with a slope fact here. And then in parentheses, we're going to go to variable x minus some kind of an x coordinate that you're going to be given. These little numbers we've seen before, those are called subscripts. That's just communicating to you, this is actually the letter y. This is something in the y family, but it's a number that we're going to know by the time we use this formula. So you can kind of blindly start off just going y minus this equals x minus that. We're going to have to fill in this number, and this number. The x and y coordinates are going to get filled in, and the slope is going to fill in. But I could take a stroll around my board right now, and I guarantee you every one of these problems is going to have something like this going on. Just the way it's going to be. Step 1 of our plan is going to be get the right number slotted in the right place using this formula. Y minus a y that they're giving us equals the slope that they're giving us, parentheses, x minus an x that they're giving us. So here's the x that they're giving us. Okay, the 5 is going to go right here, because the x coordinate that they give us is going to go in parentheses to keep the x's as a group. So this is an x that goes in with the x. This is a y. That goes over here with the y. And then the slope always goes right before the parentheses, like we're getting ready to distribute. And that's like step 1 of what's going to be a two-step plan. I'm going to leave that hang. We'll have some work to do in this space in a minute, but that's how this is going to get started. If I go to this one, the negative 2 is an x. If I go to subtract negative 2, there's the old minus minus makes plus. The 2 is an x, keep it with the x. The 4 is a y, put it with the y. Negative 3/4 is the slope. The slope goes right after the equals, right before the parentheses, just nestles right in there. This question just got a little bit trickier, because I'm telling you to go through 2 points, but I'm not specifically telling you the slope. So if they don't specifically tell you the slope, before you do anything else, you will have to figure out the slope by using information back from 9.4. The quiz we just took recently did that on there as well. Formula for slope you might like, we have this, or change in y over change in x if you prefer that one, rise over run if you like that one. But we're going to need to do some subtracting to get these slopes figured out. Let's start with the y's. The y's go on top, so I could go 4 minus 1. If I do 4 minus 1, then I have to do negative 3 minus 5. Subtracting the top gets me 3. Subtracting on the bottom is negative 8. The slope goes here. As for this, you have your choice of 2 items. If you want to use these numbers, go ahead and grab the 4. If you want to put 4 here, you could put positive 3 there. Because those are a pairing, we want to use them both if we're going to use one of them. If you'd rather use the 5 and the 1, we could put 5 here and 1 there. It doesn't really matter, you just need to pick one. For the purpose of not confusing people, I'll take a peek at my paper and see which one I picked on the paper I ran off for you, because you have some notes that accompany this. It looks like on the paper I picked the 5-1 grouping. So if I'm going to do the 5-1 grouping, 5 goes here, 1 goes there. But if I had picked the other group, it would have been just as good. One more of those, same kind of question. Okay, so here, I'm telling you 2 points to go through. We're going to need to pick one of them to fill in this and this, but we're going to have to figure out the slope. If I want to figure out the slope, I always do the y's on top. With 3's and 5's, I feel like doing 5 minus 3. If I'm going to do 5 minus 3, I'm going to do negative 2 minus 2. So the top's a 2, the bottom's a negative 4. If I reduce, that'll be negative 1/2. And then I just need to pick one of these. I probably picked the 2, 3, but let me peek at my paper just to make sure I don't mispick it. It doesn't really matter other than I don't want to confuse people by doing a different pick. I did pick the 2, 3. So 2 is an X, put it with the X. 3 is a Y, put it with the Y. And then we're set up. Again, all of these are going to have some more work to do in a minute. The last problem I'm doing, we're going to go through the point 2, 3. So since this is an X, the 2 goes there. Since 3 is a Y, 3 goes there. But we're going to have to work a little bit at the slope. The instructions say to be parallel to this line. So we need to think back a couple lessons to what it meant to be parallel. Parallel meant same slope. I believe this is the one we did yesterday. To know what the slope is for an equation like this, the easiest way to do that is to get this in slope-intercept form, which means that the y is alone. So 3y can stay there for a minute. If I want to get rid of this add 2x, I have to do the opposite. So 7 would try to subtract 2x, but they're unlike, so we're stuck. To get the y completely alone, I'd have to divide the 7 and the 2, both by 3. And the number with the x is always the slope. When we're in slope-intercept form, that was recently, it's that equation. The slope's the number with the x, the intercept is the other number. So negative 2/3 is the slope of the one I gave you. We want to be parallel, which means same slope on the one you're making for me. So that puts the negative 2/3 right after the equals, because I just want to keep the slope the same. That's how all these problems set up using point slope form. Y minus a y that we know, one of the second numbers, equals a slope that we either know or can know it by working at it. And that wants to have parentheses after it with x minus an x that we know. And if you have 2 ordered pairs that you know, just pick a group. It doesn't matter which group you pick. Quick peek at the homework. And again, I still have to finish all of these, so don't celebrate too soon. The homework page is 399. On 399, we're starting at 3. And you can see, if you look with me on 399, that from 3 to 10, the directions say, put the equation in standard form. So when I go back through these in a minute, I'm going to put about half of them into standard form to just practice that. Then when you get to 11 to 18, it says to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So the other half of these, I'm going to put them in slope-intercept form to practice that. 19 to 22, we're back to standard form. So again, I'll do half of these in standard form. And then we stop there. We stop at 22. So on the notes, off on the side, I can see on my notes that for this problem, it said to put it in slope-intercept form. So I'll do that in a minute. This problem in my notes on the left, it said to put in standard form, so we'll practice that in a minute. This one says slope-intercept form. This one says to make it be in standard form. This one says to go to slope-intercept form. So once we have these set up, they all set up, every problem in this whole homework on this whole page. We'll use this equation first to get a problem set up like we just did across the board. Then where they're going is going to depend on the direction. Slope-intercept form is going to be a little bit easier. Slope-intercept form means we want the y to be alone. So on this, to get the y alone, there's not going to be a great deal of work to do. We're going to need this to get out of there. But we're also going to need to do a distribute problem. So I'm going to leave the y minus 2 for a second. If I distribute this, I'd have 2/3 x minus, this is like it's over 1. So if I multiply across, that would be 10/3. To get the y completely alone and have an answer that we could celebrate, I'm going to need to get rid of the subtract 2 by adding on 2. For negative 10/3 to add 2. If you want to use a calculator, feel free. You earned that right back a while ago. If you don't want to use a calculator, don't have one handy, 2 is over 1. To add fractional things, we need a common denominator of 3. If I'm going to change the bottom, I'll have to multiply the top as well. For negative 10 to add a positive 6, that is going to be the 2/3 x getting copied, but minus a 4/3. Let me skip to the next slope-intercept form one just to get a handle on that technique. So this was another slope-intercept form one. So leave the y stuff alone and start off by distributing. Negative 3/8 just will go next to the x. This times this, that's like it's over a 1. Negative times negative is an add. Straight across would get us a 15/8. To get the y completely alone and have an answer to celebrate, the negative 3/8 will stand pat. But we'll have to do the opposite of this to get the y alone. We'll have to add a 1. 1's like it's over 1. If we want a common denominator of 8, the top would also have to turn into 8. Add that up, and we would get 23/8. One more slope-intercept form one. Again, leave the y stuff alone while you distribute. Negative 2/3 just goes next to x. Negative times negative is positive. That's over 1. Straight across will be 4/3. To get the y completely alone, we'd have to do the opposite of subtract 3, which is to add 3, which is over a 1, which needs a common denominator of 3, which changes the top to also multiply 3 to get up to 9. So the negative 2/3 x is still there, but plus 13/3. Those are the kind of steps you're going to do on 11 to 18. 11 to 18, you're going to have to distribute and then do an opposite to get the y alone. Standard form is going to be a smidge harder because standard form means the x and y have to be on the same side. So we're going to have a little bit more moving to do to get x and y together and get the number out of the way as well. But the other detail that makes standard form harder is that fractions aren't allowed. So before you do anything on the standard form ones, you're going to have to look to eliminate the fraction. So a problem like this, the very first thing I would look to do is see what's on the bottom, and I would multiply the entire problem by that number that's on the bottom to get a cancel going. So I'm going to have to go 4 times y. I'm going to go 4 times 4. 4 times the fraction to make a cancel would leave a negative 3. And the parentheses I'm not going to touch. Those numbers are locked away. I can't get at those yet. Whatever I did to one side by multiplying these, I already did it to the other side by attacking the fraction. I don't have to attack that also. If I did, I'd attack something twice, and you don't want to attack it twice. So we did this side, we did that side, we're still balanced. Now we would look to distribute. 4y minus 16 is negative 3x minus 6. Getting a little bit crowded, but I'll squeeze it into that little gap. I'm going to leave the y on the left. I need the x to be on that same side, so that's got to come traveling from the side it's on. To get rid of a negative 3x, I will add 3x. And then I want all the numbers on the right. So to get the 16 off the variables side, I'll have to do another opposite. To get rid of a subtract 16, I will have to add 16. And if I add 16 to negative 6, that will be a 10. If I wanted to put these in a different order, I could. It could be 3x plus 4y. If you're a little OCD about your alphabetical order, you can switch them, no problem. Another thing you should be aware of, if you look at the back of the book, if all of your signs are wrong, that actually makes you right. If I had the answer negative 4x minus, or negative 4y minus 3x equals negative 10, that would actually be okay, because we can switch all of the signs anytime we want to. So if all of your signs need to be switched, if you look at an answer in the back, don't worry about it, you're okay. One more of those. Again, standard form, the first thing you're going to have to do is scan for fractions, and if you see a fraction, take that bottom and multiply everything by that bottom, and that's going to cancel the fraction. So I'm going to use the 2 here. 2 times y, 2 times 3, 2 times the fraction just leaves the top, a negative 1. The distribute part of the problem is still there. And I'll take this into my big wide open space where I have a little more room. 2y minus 6 can sit there while I distribute to get negative 1x plus a 2, because when I distribute the negative 1, switches the sign to be a plus. And then I'd like to get the x and y to the same side while the number scoots out of there. So 2y is good on the left. To get the negative 1x to switch sides, do the opposite. Add a 1x. And to get the negative 6, subtracting 6 out of there, you'd want to add 6. If we add 6 where we're adding 2, we'd be up to an 8, and that's then in standard form. X and y on the side, number to the other side, fractions are gone. Sometimes you might get lucky. Sometimes the slope might not be a fraction. Like if this already, let's say, were a 5, you could skip the step where we cleared the fraction, just distribute the 5 and start zigzagging numbers. Every once in a while, the fraction here won't be a fraction. Like if it was 4 over 2, just make it a 2. Distribute the 2. It makes your problem a little bit easier. Homework again is $3.99. If you have questions, email me. We'll work it out by Zoom or other communication means. See ya.